This is the Holy Gospel according to St. Luke, the 17th chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was going through the region between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 lepers approached him. Keeping their distance, they called out, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were made clean. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus asked, "Were not 10 made clean? But the other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well." The Gospel of the Lord. So, in addition to the money that I give to Prince of Peace, every year I also make donations to a number of other nonprofit organizations. These are groups that I know do good work for others. And often they are groups that I myself have been involved with or which have even benefited me personally. And so I send a donation, and the group sends me back a thank you note. But depending upon the organization, the type of thank you I get may vary. Sometimes the thank you I get is simply the acknowledgement of the gift with the requisite tax notification that no goods or services have been received by me as a result of this gift. Honestly, that is all the thanks I want or need. I know the group got the gift, they said thank you, and I got the little tax receipt for when I do my taxes at the end of the year. That is all I really need. They said thank you, I'm good. But sometimes the thank you I get is not only a thank you to me, but an encouragement to give more. So I got a friend of mine who says his college is really, really good at writing letters that say, "Thank you for sending money. Please send more money." And very often the thank yous I get are thank yous like that. They end up being an ask for more. And still, at other times, the thank you I get is really about the organization blowing its own horn about how much they do. And there are a couple of groups that I give money to because I already know that they do good stuff. I don't need to read about it in my mailbox in hard copy every single month. But I get these things month after month, and sometimes I sit there and I think to myself, I didn't send them that much money. And has any of my money actually gone to doing the good stuff that they do, or are they spent it all sending me these mailings that telling me what they're doing? Now, I get it. This is how nonprofit fundraising works. I do nonprofit fundraising partly as part of my job. I understand this. But still, what they're sending me is really not just a thank you. So what is the real point of saying thank you? That's a question that today's gospel reading raises because Jesus cures 10 people of leprosy, yet only one of them comes back to say thank you. Jesus himself makes a big deal about this one guy who comes back and says thanks. And yet, Jesus tells him to get up and go on his way because his faith has made him well, not his thankfulness. Indeed, Jesus points out that all 10 were made well. They were all made well because of their faith. That is, they believed the promise of Jesus and they acted on it. That, in and of itself, is a pretty big deal. These 10 guys stood far at a distance, as they were required to do so they didn't infect anyone. This is long before COVID and 6 feet. They stood far at a distance and called out to Jesus, asking him to help. Yet, like Elisha in today's Old Testament reading, Jesus did not go up to them and he did not wave his hand over their spots or anything. Instead, he simply told them to go and show themselves to the priest, which is what you were supposed to do after you were healed. But they were still sick. And yet, all 10 of these guys, they do what Jesus says, even though they haven't been healed yet, and Jesus does not clue them in on what's going to happen. He doesn't say, go on your way to show yourself to the priest, and while you're going, you'll be made well. By the time you get there, everything will be good. They don't know that. They hear what Jesus says, they believe him, they do it, and they're all made well. And they all apparently realize they've been healed. But only one of them turns around and comes back to thank Jesus. All 10 are healed, even the ones who do not say thank you. The guy who gives thanks is not healed more than the other 9. And Jesus never says anything like, well, from now on, only you who gave thanks, you're the only one that's going to be the recipient of God's love and mercy in your life. So, why is giving thanks so important? Jesus makes a big deal about it. But why is it so important? What makes it essential? In the New Testament, giving thanks to God is often lifted up as important. But at least in this instance, giving thanks seems to be important because it gives the one giving thanks the opportunity to direct his thanks and praise to the one who helped him. That is, giving thanks is a way of realizing the active, present reality of God in your life. The rest of the group might have been generally thankful. Oh, look, hey, we're healed. This is a pretty good thing. I guess I'm deeply thankful in my heart. But this one guy recognizes that God did something for him. And he goes back and he thanks Jesus and he directs that thanks to the one who actively intervened in his problem. Giving thanks seems to be important here because it's in giving thanks that the one who said thank you actually got to meet Jesus. You know, I don't know if I ever quite realized this before, but the 10, when they called out and said, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us, are way on the other side of the place. No, but they don't actually get close enough to even see what Jesus looks like. And they can't because they're sick. But when the one who comes back and says thank you gets close to Jesus, he gets to have a conversation with Jesus. He actually has an actual living experience of Jesus in a way that none of the rest did because he took the time to say thank you. And giving thanks is important here because giving thanks made the healing real and noticed in the lives of others in the community. I don't know if you've ever noticed this. In many of Jesus' healing stories, Jesus does something really great. He even raises the dead, and nobody seems to notice. Nobody notices, that is, until somebody gets all wacky about it, goes, woo, thank you, God, and starts screaming and hopping up and down, and that's when people notice. That's when people go, oh, look, God is doing something in the life of the world around me. Maybe there's hope for me too. You get the sense that in this scene, it wouldn't have been remembered at all, except for the fact that this one guy made a big deal and started screaming and praising God and came back and gave thanks to Jesus. Otherwise, they all would have gone on their way and been healed, and nobody else would have really noticed it. But giving thanks made a difference to everybody else around him. And that's why I think giving thanks is important for us too. Giving thanks to God is not simply about being polite or pious. Instead, for us too, giving thanks is a way in which we have an opportunity each day to recognize God's presence and goodness in our lives. That is, we get to direct our thanks to somebody who has blessed us, to the God who has actively intervened and does intervene in our lives all the time. I've been thinking about that as we get near the National Day of Thanksgiving. And in our society, it seems like we have created a situation in which thankfulness is generally a good thing to have. It's like faith. Oh, it's good to have faith. In whom? Oh, it doesn't matter. Just kind of have faith. That's a good thing. Thankfulness is like that too. It's good to be thankful. Let's be thankful. Okay, to whom? Well, it doesn't really matter. Just kind of be thankful that I'm living a better life than most people. Okay. Be thankful that you're born in this country. Well, that's kind of luck. Well, be thankful that you have stuff. Well, that's nice. But do we ever direct our praise and thanks to the one who has made it possible for us to have all of these things, to be in a situation where we could actually help others? Are we in that position? Do we direct our thanks in that way? Being thankful to God gives us the opportunity to say, this is not just luck, this is not just chance. There is a God who is blessing me each day and gives me the opportunity to turn around and take that and bless others as well. Directing our thanks to God actually helps us too to recognize the presence and love of God in our lives. For us too, Giving thanks is a way of encountering Jesus also. You know, people often look for ways in their lives to feel closer to God, to feel the presence of Jesus. Some of those ways, they work better than others. But in the Bible, the people who thanked Jesus always had a personal and living encounter with Jesus. And it's often the case that thanking Jesus can be more helpful in helping us spiritually grow closer to God than it is to simply sit around and ask for stuff as though we were addressing a heavenly Santa Claus. It may also be the reason that from the very beginning, the earliest descriptions of people having communion together in the first century, they referred to the celebration of communion as the Eucharist. It's a Greek word that we still sometimes use. It means thanksgiving. They saw this presence of Jesus most clearly happening when they had an act of thanksgiving, when the community gathered to give thanks. Because like this guy who was cured and who came back to thank Jesus, they saw in that communal act of thanksgiving an opportunity to be drawn closer to the living, active presence of Jesus in their lives, to experience God's presence in a special and unique way. And it is also the case for us that when we give thanks, we also share hope with others. In our world, lots of people simply do not believe God exists anymore. And many more think, well, maybe there is a God, but he's out there someplace and I don't really have any relationship with him. Maybe when I die, who knows? But often, the best way of witnessing to God's presence is to acknowledge God's help, to give thanks. Hey, I am thankful to God for giving me the strength to get through something I didn't think I was going to be able to get through. Or, I'm grateful to God and thankful that God gave me the gift to do this thing to help somebody else that I know others needed. And I know that gift came from God. Thankfulness to God, just as in today's gospel reading, often shows God's presence to others in ways nothing else can. Jesus tells us today that giving thanks is important. But it's not important because we need to give God a tax receipt, and it's not because it's through giving thanks that we somehow will get more goodies down the road. Instead, it's often through the act of giving thanks that we're reminded of the active, caring presence of God in our lives, which might get overlooked in the chaos and confusion that often surrounds our lives. It's through the act of giving thanks that we're personally drawn closer to Jesus, and it's often through the act of giving thanks that we acknowledge God's help and presence in such a way that other people notice God's goodness as well and can be inspired to have hope and thankfulness.